The automobile holds a seemingly unbeatable allure. It provides mobility and convenience. But the auto's usefulness stands in sharp contrast to the costs and burdens that society must shoulder. Because the car runs on petroleum-based fuels, the auto industry is sensitive to changes in the price and availability of oil. As a means of transportation, the automobile is, after all, only as reliable as its fuel supplies. The smooth ride America had taken on a relatively stable flow of cheap oil ended 17 years ago. The Arab oil embargo of 1973-74 spawned a global energy crisis. The Iranian Revolution in 1979 sparked further price increases. But the dark clouds cast over the auto's future by the two oil shocks in the 70s seemed to recede in the 80s. And while concern over oil prices and supplies faded from memory, new concerns surfaced over the effect fossil fuels have on human health and the environment. Until recently, the auto culture was so deeply ingrained in our society that alternatives to it seemed virtually unthinkable. But renewed warnings of an oil crisis and concerns about environmental effects of gasoline use have revived interest in alternative means of powering cars. One of the leading alternatives is solar-powered electric vehicles using photovoltaic cells to convert sunlight into electricity to fuel the vehicle. Although solar-powered cars are relatively new, electric vehicles are not. Early in this century, electric cars outnumbered gasoline vehicles, but dropped out of favor as the gasoline engine was improved. Now, nearly 90 years later, as environmental concerns grow more pressing, electric cars are ready for a comeback. But such vehicles can only be a viable alternative if the fuels used in electricity generation are renewable. In Phoenix, Arizona, where the sun shines for more than 300 days a year, solar cars are taking to the streets. Earlier this year, Arizona Energy Office officials, in conjunction with the United States Grand Prix, staged the first ever Grand Prix-style event in the U.S. for solar-powered cars. Solar cars representing 5 colleges and universities participated in the event. The streets of downtown Phoenix, usually clogged with gasoline-powered cars on their way to work, were cordoned off for the United States Iceberg Grand Prix and the first annual Governor's Cup Solar Challenge. While the Formula One cars were gearing up for the start of the 1990 Grand Prix World Circuit, the solar cars, batteries fully charged, waited for their turn to practice. The contrast was stark, from fossil-fueled cars to solar cars, from powerful, noisy engines to clean, quiet energy. The power of the sun was about to propel this new generation of cars around the Phoenix Grand Prix track. After the Grand Prix qualifying was completed, officials opened the track to solar cars. Solar cars representing M.I.T, Crowder College, and Western Washington slowly made their way through the crowds and into line for 2 practice laps. The 2.5-mile course featured 12 90-degree turns, 1 180-degree turn, a mile-long front straight, and a half-mile-long back straight. The Solectria 5, a 2-passenger commuter car being developed by students at M.I.T, was the first car on the track. M.I.T students have formed a company and hope to one day mass produce an affordable solar car. MIT solar race car was the next out onto the track, and the driver, James Warden, quickly demonstrated that the tight course layout was no problem for the MIT car. Warden, a veteran of several solar races, including the Swiss and American Tour de Sol, also established the fact that his car was going to be tough to beat. Crowder College is not new to the world of solar car racing. Although their entry in the Governor's Cup Star 2 was still in the developmental stage, they brought a wealth of experience with them to Phoenix. In 1987, Crowder's Star 1 placed 8th in the World Solar Challenge across Australia. Viking 20, the entry from Western Washington University, was making its maiden voyage. Prior to coming to Phoenix, the car had made one lap around a parking lot, but the unique two-seater with its stealth bomber appearance quickly became a crowd favorite. After 2 laps, track officials waved the solar cars off the course. Viking 20 was the last car on the track. It had a mechanical problem. A defective fuse took several minutes to correct and almost kept Viking 20 from participating in the practice session. The practice session had gone without a hitch for Crowder College, but a flat tire had slowed the MIT racer. As in Formula One races, solar cars in races such as this test the technology. There were many lessons learned as these pioneers paved the way to commercialization. Back in the pits, the team members and drivers began charting strategies for the next day's run when they would compete with solar cars from Arizona State University and Stanford in the first annual Governor's Cup Solar Challenge. But for Western Washington's Paul Dickerson and Keith Kaplan, strategy and adjustments would have to wait until autographs had been signed. Hours before the running of the Governor's Cup, a hard rain began falling. It was the one thing the teams had not planned on encountering in Phoenix. While the Crowder team took shelter beneath Star 2, faculty advisors and officials huddled to determine whether to run the event as scheduled. The decision was to go with the challenge as planned. As was the case with the first day, the Selectria 5 set the pace to start. The M.I.T. racer was next onto the track. Stanford University's car, minus its body and solar cells, joined Western Washington, Crowder, and Arizona State in making its first official test run before the crowds at Phoenix. The three-wheeled vehicle was running entirely off battery power. Arizona State University's Sun Devil Cruiser, also minus its solar cells, had to rely upon batteries for power. A.S.U's team had worked right up to the last possible minute preparing for the Governor's Cup Solar Challenge, the first of several events planned for solar cars throughout the world in 1990. A.S.U, along with the others participating in the Governor's Cup, have entered several other races, including the GM Sun Race, the first transcontinental solar car race in the United States. The GM race covers 1,800 miles of secondary highways between Orlando, Florida, and Warren, Michigan. For the second day in a row, Warden's solar car proved to be the fastest in the field, reaching speeds in excess of 60 miles per hour. But an oil slick on the sixth turn forced Warden to reduce his speed. With oil on his tires and rain-slick streets, the M.I.T. race car never approached its top speed of 90 miles per hour. Both the commuter car and Viking 20 carried a passenger for the Governor's Cup. The Viking 20's unusual design is for practical purposes. Built exclusively for the GM race, which is being run basically on a north to south route, Viking 20 can be driven from either end, depending on where the sun is in the sky. Besides overcast skies and oil on the track that prevented drivers from reaching top speeds, the Governor's Cup Solar Challenge was an impressive showcase for solar cars before an international audience. And when the final turn had been negotiated, representatives from each team joined Arizona Governor Rose Mofford on the victory stand for a salute to solar cars, a non-polluting alternative to internal combustion engines.